was his very super feminist wife,
Yeah.
who was so deprived
Yes.
of this dominance, this masculine that she was craving. The reason why he said, oh, it probably saved our marriage is because if he was unwilling to give that level of masculine dominance to her, she would have found it outside the marriage. That's basically what he's saying right there.
It took that moment of my incredibly feminist, unbelievably professionally successful wife to say, I think the problem is you're not masculine enough. And it was just like the energy that I had. I felt as if like asking for more in our relationship for myself was to be a bad feminist, was to not support her. I was supposed to be a good ally. The world was made for men and all our needs and desires and so on. So my job was to be an ally to her. And anything that got in the way of that was difficult or complicated. And it was, well, I don't know what would have happened to our relationship without it. But I can tell you that from that moment onwards, our relationship grew and flourished and continues to flower in a way that it just would not otherwise have done, because it's almost like by being so direct, she forced this movement inside me where I almost gave myself permission to give some expression to the sides of myself that are more masculine.
I already know what you're going to say. If you've ever met someone who's like, that can be empathetic to the other side, because it's so hard to be the empathetic to the other side when you're surrounded by something. Richard Reeves is a British citizen who went through academia. There is nothing more liberal or social. Like the media in other European countries, what we consider to be moderate, they consider to be hardcore right wing. They're far more to the left. So for him to be completely surrounded by, again, his wife who's a feminist, and for him to be an academic, and for him to at least be open enough to this realization that he doesn't need permission from his wife, I'm just proud of him. Because to be fair, like, again, it goes back to the same thing I was saying about Scott Galloway. For him, Scott Galloway, to say what he said on The View, they were ready to shoot arrows and hit him with pitchforks. For him to actually, men need to be more masculine? How dare you? Like, that's what I expected all the Karens to say when he said that. And for Richard Reeves to say this is a conclusion that he's come to. By the way, there was a period when I didn't have this conclusion. I didn't understand this. I was managing a strip club, and I thought I just need to make all these girls happy, and then one of them will love me. I was just as confused. At some point, you do come to that realization, and I'm proud that he came to the realization at some point it's going to make his marriage way more fruitful. So at least, listen, I don't know how you came to the kingdom of God, but at least you got here somehow. And so I'm happy that, because I actually like Richard a lot, I'm very happy that he came to that realization. But for you and me, it's going to seem obvious. And yes, of course, you don't need your wife's permission to be masculine.
Well, it wasn't even, actually, the way I approach it was this, is that it was his very super feminist wife, who was so
that's another point.
So deprived of this, dominance, this masculine that she was craving. And it's like, the reason why he said, oh, it probably saved our marriage is because if he was unwilling to give that level of masculine dominance to her, she would have found it outside the marriage. That's basically what he's saying right there.
So here's the thing, and I'm not saying this about Richard Reeves' wife because I don't know anything about his wife. What I'm saying is I have seen some women, the reason they become feminists is because they're so uncomfortable with their desire for masculinity.
Right.
They really do find masculine men very attractive, and it unnerves them to the point that they turn into feminism. That's what it's very similar to a closeted homosexual man who hates gays. It is a closeted woman who desires masculine men who becomes a feminist, acting as if she hates them. And it gets to the point where it's like her biology. Again, there's a reason why lesbians have a 78% divorce rate. And the reason why they have a 78% divorce rate generally is because one of the two partners has a baby. Once she has a baby, all of a sudden these
maternal instincts hit.
These internal instincts come in, and she's looking at her butch wife, and then looking at the baby, and looking at the butch wife, and then seeing the doctor with his big fucking arms, and is like, wait a second, something's wrong here, and then the divorce happens. One of the biggest precipitators of divorce in lesbian relationship, lesbian relationship is when one of the two partners has a child. And so that's essentially what's happening. But anyway, this whole thing happens. For Professor Reeves to even come to this realization is a miracle, to be fair.
Takes that level of, I'll say, crisis, trauma, whatever, for her to say, I need you to be more masculine because I know I'm a feminist, but my base human nature needs this out of you, and I don't care about the blank slate, social constructionism, emotionalism, egalitarianism, and all this bullshit that you guys have swallowed for the last, since the sexual revolution, right? And thinking that that's what's going to make for a better life, make for a better, I'm going to call you my partner.
She doesn't need an ally. She needs a husband.
Yeah, well, and then the reason I put that on there is because it's such a common story that like really sort of dyed in the wool feminists come to the realization that, you know what, I would rather date a guy who's more dominantly masculine because they get done because they got the big arms and whatever else, right? And so suddenly all of that, the realization, the real miracle is that the wife came to that conclusion herself.
Yes.
Because it's basically like renouncing your religion. Your religion is feminism, but like, you know what? If I say I need a more masculine guy, and this is the guy I married, and he's not the most masculine guy in the world, now I feel like maybe I need to go a step outside the marriage to find that.